Sometimes it's the stories that start so simply that end up being the most fascinating, and today we're diving into one of those. We're talking about hope, we're talking about red balloons, and we're talking about a connection right in the heart of New York City that unfolds in a way you absolutely wouldn't expect.
It really is remarkable, when you think about it, a simple act like releasing a red balloon and how it intersects with the life of a former president, no less, all against the backdrop of a city like New York. It really makes you think about how unpredictable life can be, especially in a place like that.
Absolutely. And the heart of this story is Chris, an Air Force veteran who at this point in his life is navigating the streets of New York after his service. So picture this. It's dawn in the city. He's not just anywhere. He's at Lexington Avenue and 33rd Street.
Interesting choice, right? You think about that location. It's like this central point, this crossroads, where countless lives are converging every single day.
Exactly. And every single morning, as the city is just starting to wake up, Chris is there, meticulously preparing these red balloons.
Almost like a ritual, tapping into the pulse of the city, wouldn't you say? Choosing that spot, that very specific intersection, to send out his message. And you have to think about how each balloon, this little flicker of red against the steel and glass, it probably means something different to each person who sees it.
Right. And they're not just any balloons, are they? He attaches a note, a message to every single one. Sometimes it's a quote, something from history, or a verse, or even just, a few words of encouragement. But it's always something carefully chosen.
It's like he's curating these messages, these whispers of hope, sending them out into this whirlwind of energy that is New York City, creating a dialogue almost with the city itself. And it's an invitation, too. An invitation for people to look up, to pause just for a moment, and think about something beyond the daily grind.
And here's the thing, New Yorkers, they noticed. It was like the city itself took a collective breath. Imagine the city has a pulse, right? And it's usually so frantic and hurried, but for a moment, there was something different.
It's that contrast, isn't it? The city that never sleeps, suddenly captivated by this simple act, a moment of quiet contemplation inspired by a red balloon. It's almost poetic.
It really is. And of course, there's that added layer of mystery. The red balloon letters. That's what people started calling them on social media because no one knew who was behind it. And somehow, that made it even more powerful.
That anonymity, I think it's crucial because it allows people to project their own interpretations, their own hopes and dreams onto those balloons. There's a purity there because the message isn't tied to any expectation. It's just hope.
Hope distilled.
Yeah.
A shared experience that brought people together, even in a city as crowded as New York. And speaking of those individual lives, one of those red balloons, caught by an unexpected current of wind, he was about to have an encounter that would change everything.
It's a city of millions, right? Each person with their own story, their own journey, and this red balloon, this little speck of hope, it ends up, of all places, on the balcony of Trump Tower.
Talk about a city that never sleeps. And in this city that never sleeps, it finds its way to a man known for shaping narratives. A man synonymous with ambition, with going after what he wants, with results.
And it's that very ambition, that drive that makes this whole thing so fascinating. Can you imagine being Donald Trump at that time, still living in Trump Tower, preparing for this major speech, and you see this splash of red on your balcony? It's unexpected, to say the least.
So he goes and investigates, naturally, unties the note, and there it is. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Now, that's a powerful statement on its own, but for someone like Trump, someone who's all about action, about shaping the world around him, it must have really resonated.
Oh, absolutely. It's like this message sent out into the void. It found its perfect recipient. It aligned perfectly with his worldview. And the fact that it came to him without attribution, without a name attached to it, that probably just added to its impact.
And what does he do? He uses it. He weaves it into his speech.
And the media, can you imagine the frenzy? This quote, it fit him so well, but no one could figure out where it came from. It became this huge source of speculation. The irony is almost too much, isn't it?
Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, Chris is watching this speech. Maybe he's in a diner, maybe he's at a library, but he sees it, his words, spoken by a former president, amplified on a national stage.
It really makes you question, doesn't it? Who has the power to influence, to shape the conversation? Here's a man experiencing homelessness, and all he has is a red balloon and a message, and yet it ends up woven into the fabric of a presidential address.
And that's not even the end of it. Because remember, Trump, he's known for doing the unexpected. He wants to know who wrote that quote, who sent that balloon. And he doesn't just want to know, he wants to meet them.
Suddenly, Chris, who probably never expected anything to come of this, he's at the center of a media storm. Can you imagine?
It must have been a whirlwind. Disbelief, probably a healthy dose of apprehension, but maybe, just maybe, a glimmer of hope.
Because here's this opportunity, completely out of left field, a chance encounter that could lead to, well, who knows what.
And that's where this story takes on another layer, doesn't it? It's not just about hope anymore. It's about connection, about those unexpected moments that bring people together. And Trump, true to his word, he makes it happen. He puts a plan in motion that's going to bring these two very different worlds colliding together.
Imagine this. It's New York City, the heart of it all. Traffic, crowds, the noise, the energy, and then everything starts. A presidential motorcade, not at a fancy hotel, not at some political event, but at the corner of Lexington and 33rd Street.
It's almost surreal, isn't it? You think about a city like New York, and it's easy to feel lost in the shuffle, forgotten. And yet here we have this moment, this pause, where the city seemed to acknowledge something important is happening.
Exactly. You've got those towering skyscrapers, people rushing about, and then there's Chris standing on a street corner he probably knows like the back of his hand, maybe with one of those red balloons, a symbol of hope he's been sending out. And it's those balloons, in a way, that brought him to this moment.
And out of that limousine steps Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, a figure who's larger than life in so many ways, synonymous with power, with ambition, and yet he's drawn to this quiet corner, compelled by a message of hope, by a simple act of kindness.
It's a reminder, isn't it, that at the end of the day, we're all human, that shared experiences can bridge divides we might think are impossible to overcome. It's a powerful message.
So they meet. These two men from completely different worlds, their lives intersecting in this extraordinary way. What do you think is going through their minds in that moment? What words do you even begin to exchange when you're a former president meeting a man who's been sending out messages of hope on red balloons?
It's hard to even fathom, isn't it, the mix of emotions. But what we do know is that Trump, being Trump, well, he's not one to let an opportunity pass him by. He sees something in Chris. You can sense it. A resilience, a strength, a story that deserves to be heard.
And that's where this story really takes another turn, because Trump doesn't just offer words, he offers action. Right there, on that crowded street corner, he extends a hand, offering Chris a place to live, a chance to rebuild his life, a way out of the uncertainty of living on the streets.
A pretty remarkable gesture, don't you think? Especially in a city like New York, where the struggles of so many can be so easily overlooked. But it goes beyond even that, because Trump, recognizing the power of Chris's words, the way they resonated with people, he offers him something else entirely. A job.
As a speechwriter, if you can believe it, the man who is sending out messages on red balloons is now being offered a chance to craft messages that could reach a nation. It's an incredible turn of events, and it makes you wonder about the unexpected ways life can unfold, the possibilities that open up when we least expect them.
Absolutely. This whole story is a testament to that. It's about the resilience of the human spirit, the power of second chances, and the profound impact that simple acts of kindness, however small they might seem, can have on the world around us.
It really challenges us to look beyond the surface, doesn't it? To see the potential that exists in everyone, regardless of their circumstances. And maybe, just maybe, it reminds us that even in a city as vast and as chaotic as New York, connections can form in the most unexpected ways, weaving together the lives of strangers and reminding us that hope, once it's out there, it has a way of finding its mark.
Beautifully said. And you know, as we wrap up this deep dive, it strikes me that this isn't just a story about hope or even about human connection. It's a story about the city itself. New York, for all its complexities, for all its contradictions, it's ultimately a tapestry of individual stories, each one capable of moving us, surprising us, and reminding us of the power of the human spirit. And sometimes all it takes is a single red balloon to remind us of that.